his life, and he would be a billionaire now since he's got new property. But I'm afraid he wasn't around to do it. Now we're going to Running Water Canyon up here. And that's where the railroad and the road both have to pass through this gap. And it separates Raccoon Mountain on our right from Sand Mountain in the distance. So this is how if you're in the General Crittenden's 21st Corps, you will come in to Lookout Valley after having crossed the river at Shell Mound. Shell Mound we will point out as we go along the road to Stevenson. There's Lookout Mountain on our left, and we're going through the gap that separates Raccoon Mountain on our right from Sand Mountain. Sand Mountain will be what that ridge line is known as. When it reaches its southwesternmost point near Edenton, Alabama, now Birmingham. General Rosecrans will first hear about Chattanooga as an important objective even before he takes command of the Army of Ohio, which won him taking command of it on the 26th, but formally so on the 30th day of October. It had been known as the Army of the Ohio under General Buell, and it fought under that name at the battles of Shiloh and Perryville. But Buell had been relieved, and General Rosecrans had been brought in to take command. And he's informed that his objective is, by General-in-Chief Henry Wigler Hallett, after consultations with Mr. Lincoln and Secretary of War Stanton, that his objective will be, and he does it, the orders went out on the 18th, a week before Rosecrans arrives to take command, and it is to move forward, drive the Confederates out of Middle and East Tennessee. East Tennessee having been an objective of the President of the United States almost since he was inaugurated as President of the United States, because of the strong Union feeling in East Tennessee. Chattanooga would be considered in East Tennessee, as would be Knoxville. And the principal gateway into East Tennessee from Kentucky, of course, is Cumberland Gap. So he's to move in to drive the Confederates from Middle and East Tennessee, relieve the East Tennesseans of the hard heel of the Confederates, and cross the Tennessee River and go to Chattanooga. So from the very beginning, as he takes command, that is what is expected of him. Rosecrans says, of course, briefly, if you didn't read anything about it, he was a West Point graduate in 1842 from Ohio, born up in Delaware, Ohio, just north of Columbus, and grew up on a farm where the house no longer standing, or if you want to go looking for it, you will find a marker. He graduated number 5 in his class from West Point. We're going through Running Water. We're going through Whiteside Canyon and we're going to Running Water Creek. We're going to pass on here a bridge which will indicate where they have this railroad bridge everybody takes pictures of at that time that carried the railroad across Whiteside Canyon. And we'll soon be going by that point. And he had gone into the Corps of Engineers, graduating number 5. He's a classmate of General Longstreet, so he would know him well. And he is a Catholic convert, and when it's not that popular to be a Catholic in the United States, there's a strong Catholic feeling, and being a convert, he's a very strong Catholic, much stronger than many people that are born into the Catholic Church. Have been it from the time they have been baptized. So, and he keeps, which makes him a little suspicious, because he has his personal chaplain assigned to his staff. And after he's a person you don't like to work for. He's an evening man. So the hours are reversed. Most people's energy occurs in the morning, and they are ready to go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock. But that's when they're doing, and he's a crony man, and they will assemble and they will talk many things. And they spend a lot of time discussing the Catholic Church and Catholic dogma, which makes him a little suspicious to people that believe he wears his Catholicism a little too much on his shoulder. He will he'll leave the army in 1854 to go into business as an inventor of a coal oil heater, refining kerosene, and will almost lose his life in an explosion. It scars his face very badly, so he's pretty well off in the age where men wear beards. And if you don't like him, his scars make him look like he's smirking at you. So you can, if you don't like people that seem to be smirking at you, and you're an anti-Catholic, you don't like him very well. And he and Grant are not. He and Grant do not like each other. It dates back to the battles of Iuka and Corinth in the fall of in the late summer, Iuka on the 19th day of September in northeast Mississippi, and we're going to soon see the trestle as it exists today as we approach Running Water and Whiteside. And he will also not follow up his victory at the Battle of Corinth on the 3rd and 4th of October. And so Grant does not particularly like him. And that's going to be bad for Rosecrans when the administration, lacking gonads, decides they want to fire Rosecrans. So rather than fire them themselves, because he's very popular with the rank and file of the army, they let Grant decide if he wants to fire him or not. And Grant takes about a couple of hours to decide. Rosecrans, but that's in the future. That's after Chickamauga, but before Missionary Ridge. That will be on the 16th day of October of 1863, and Rosecrans gets fired by U.S. Grant, not by the Secretary of War, but they've all given him authority. Also, Rosecrans does not get along with the Secretary of War. And when the administration sends their administration pimp, Charles A. Dana, out to spy on both Grant and Rosecrans, Grant shows he's smarter. He cultivates Dana. You could say if Dana turned a corner, Grant might break his nose. And he lets him shares all information with him, treats him nice, and the Army of the Cumberland from Rosecrans on down, I think that he agreed with Gordon Granger, one of their senior Corps commanders, who we'll hear a little bit about tomorrow, that Dana is a despicable administration pimp you can think of two law enforcement people sitting opposite me, what they think of a pimp. So he has problems of certain sort. He's thought very highly of the rank and file, so they will not be happy with what's going when he gets his administration treatment. So after the battle, he wins the Battle of Stones River because he outlasts Bragg, and will then, as you heard from Jim last night, spends the next 6 months not doing much of anything, building supply depots, shaping up the railroad, and will take the offensive after much urging by the War Department on the 23rd day of June, when his troops leave the Murfreesboro area, and in a brilliant campaign, which, all right, here's Whiteside. The trestle there is exciting, and it's much more exciting in its earlier manifestation, when it was supported by a large number of pilings. So we just passed, you can see we're definitely going through a gap here, separating. Everything on your right is on Raccoon Mountain, everything on your left is on Sand Mountain. So he will take the offensive on the 23rd day of June, and by the 4th day of July, he's maneuvered Bragg out of mid-Tennessee. He's lost less than 600 casualties doing it, and has driven the Confederates behind the Tennessee River. He gets a little round off because the administration is commending General Grant for capturing Vicksburg on the 4th day of July, and is promoting him to a major general in the regular army. Grant still is a major general of volunteers. And General Meade will also get a lot of play in the press for winning the Battle of Gettysburg, but gets a little, but goes somewhat under eclipse. Now we're approaching Shell. We're approaching Shell Mound, the area where on the 29th day of August, Union troops of General J.J. Reynolds' division of Thomas's 14th Corps will cross the river here at Shell Mound. So we are also crossing the river at Shell Mound, and we're also in an area of Nickajack Cave, which is on the south side of the river here. It's one of the big caves that everybody visited. And among the visitors are two men from the 82nd Indiana who get lost in the cave. How are we going to let them find their way out? A very smart officer will say, we'll have the brigade band play at the mouth of the cave, and any idiot can find, if they're not too far back in it, that they how to get out. Another adventuresome Union soldier falls to his death in Nickajack Cave. The entrance of it, of course, is on our left, and we would have to get out of the bus here, and if we were going to see the entrance to Nickajack Cave. We'll soon be passing in about 5 miles Battle Creek. That's where most of Crittenden's Corps will cross the river. Now, Crittenden's Corps, since they arrived in the area on the 21st day of August, have been demonstrating upstream. In fact, showing their rather godless fellows in Eli Lilly's 18th Ohio Battery on the day that everybody in Chattanooga, Bragg and his staff, are attending services because of a day of national humiliation and prayer. From Stringer's Ridge on the opposite side of the river, Eli Lilly has his guns open fire. He's attached to White Wilder's brigade. Bam, bam, bam. And they break up the church services. So God should now, if he was on the Union side, should switch. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen to the Confederates. Because if you know, everybody believes God is on their side. In fact, the Germans both during World War I and World War II on their belt buckles wore got boots. Even the SS were in World War II on their belt buckles. So that will announce the Union has reached the area. But back to Rosecrans. Rosecrans sends a message to Halleck, uninvited, and says, "What's the matter with you people? What's the matter with you? I have maneuvered the enemy out of Middle Tennessee. I've driven them across the Tennessee River, and why don't you say some good things about the Army of the Cumberland?" He said, then he goes in and adds a real zinger. "I did this with minimal casualties, and General Grant at Gettysburg and General Meade lost large numbers of men. So I imagine all the mothers and fathers and wives and kin think General Rosecrans is a lot better general than General Halleck and the people in Washington. That he's gained an important objective with the loss of minimal people. And I imagine the soldiers like him for that too, when they think that General Meade lost 22,000 casualties in the Gettysburg campaign, and Grant lost in the Vicksburg campaign over 10,000 men. But that does not make the War Department like him any better. And he will then halt and wait for the corn to ripen. As the War Department pounds him, let's get on with the war. Let's get on with the war, because he halts his advance at the edge of the Cumberland Plateau. These are the mountains up ahead of us, and then halts and waits until the 16th day of July, establishing advanced supply depots, repairing the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad all the way forward to Cowan, Tennessee, and is reconnoitering the area. On the 16th, he takes the offensive again and is going to using we're now, the river coming in here is the Sequatchie River. The Sequatchie Valley is about 60 miles long, extending in a northeast direction. On the west side of the Sequatchie Valley is the Cumberland Plateau. On the east side is Walden's Ridge. So when they move forward, Crittenden's 21st Corps takes position in the Sequatchie Valley, sending Wilder's brigade on to Moccasin Bend, where they can signal their arrival when they open fire with Lilly's guns on the 21st day of August and break up the church services where General Bragg is attending this national day of humiliation and prayer. And they will continue demonstrating up there. Bragg will be maneuvered, in the words of a good basketball announcer, they maneuver Bragg out of his jockstrap. Because he deploys all his men upstream from Chattanooga. As Bragg believes until the 4th day of September that when the Union crossing of the river comes, it's going to be upstream from Chattanooga, not downstream. So he has maneuvered him out of position. In fact, earlier he had pulled his only troops opposite Bridgeport, Cotton Anderson, back to Chattanooga. And as made it a point by Jim last night, Joe Wheeler may have graduated West Point, but he isn't very good on reconnaissance. He's watching supposed to be watching the area of the Tennessee River as it swings southward through after passing by Bridgeport on that great loop it takes across northern Alabama, about 30 miles south of the Tennessee line, not to enter Tennessee again until it reaches the area of Tuscumbia and Eastport when it turns northward and it re-enters Tennessee just south of Pittsburgh Landing. So he's supposed to be watching those crossings, but since they're not worried much about him, his men are stationed, his headquarters are back there near Rome, Georgia, and he only has one regiment of cavalry deployed forward to watch the crossings that the Confederates are going to use. Shell Mound, where most of the Army, most of Crittenden's Corps will cross. Watch Battle Creek, which we're in the area of, where two divisions of General Thomas's men will cross of the 14th Corps, nor Bridgeport, where they're going to build a bridge, which he contracts to do by a railroad construction company across the river at Bridgeport. At Bridgeport, there's Long Island divides the river. And on the north side of Long Island, as you flow south and west, the river is quite wide but shallow. And you have Long Island, and then the deep channel of the river, the navigable one, flows on the south side of Long Island, where they haven't been named. It's narrow and lengthy. So there they will build across the wide channel. They'll build two trestle bridges to replace them, because most of the Army's wagons are going to cross at Bridgeport. And they're not very good. The Pioneer Brigade, commanded, the Pioneer Brigade will have the trestle bridge will collapse twice on August 31st. It will make you very careful on crossing it, because you lose some equipment. You don't lose any men, but you have a mule ground. So they've got to rebuild one of the trestle bridges. Now, on the deep side, they don't have as much trouble because they use a cotton bridge over there on the south side of the island. Then 5 miles below, near Stevenson, they're going to our first stop is going to be at Stevenson. Stevenson is southeast of the junction of where the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad, coming down from Nashville, joins the Memphis and Charleston Railroad, which is not operable very far to the west, because it's the Union occupy that part of Mississippi. And then you get 4 or 5 miles downstream from the Long Island crossing of Bridgeport. They will throw the Army's pontoon. If you're not in the engineers, but if you're in the engineers who are elitists, they like to use French terms. That shows they're a little higher, both in the West Point graduating classes. and a little more, and they can read Napoleon in the French version. And I was corrected once by Maxwell Taylor one time. He was in the group that I was talking to. He said, please use the name, please use pont, don't use pontoon. So since I was never more than a corporal in the Marine Corps, I heed what the Army Chief of Staff told me. Look at that. That's back in about 1957, and it was really good. So there they're going to, there will be the first major crossing, will be at Caperton Ferry. It'll be across on a pond bridge, thrown across by the 1st Brigade to cross. Will be a man who is going to be with us. We'll be with him when he dies, when he's mortally wounded on the 19th. A person is bilingual, his first language is Norwegian, and that is Brigadier General, that's Colonel Higgs, and he has a wife named Helga, and if you're in the Civil War writing between man and wife, it's a pretty good letter, but they're all going to cease on the 31st day, on the 19th day of September. So we're going to cross at those 4 points. And it really doesn't slip through Bragg to be convinced that they're going to do that until the 4th day of September. And they'll be crossing between they'll be crossing, as you look at your map, in the period between the 30th day of August and the 4th day of September. General Sheridan will be in charge with the engineers of building the longest bridge and the most important, because that's the one that the railroad is eventually going to, when they go further, they're going to have a good bridge there, and Grant will be wise enough, Rosecrans will be wise enough to contract rebuilding the Bridgeport Bridge with private industry, showing that they agree that they support private industry. Also, the Whiteside Bridge will be rebuilt by Engineering Corporation. So Thomas's men will cross. You will cross on a broader front. Crossing at Caperton's Ferry will be one of Thomas's 4 divisions. The division commanded by General James Negley, who will get on everybody's S list after the Battle of Chickamauga. And we have I don't know if I'm from Pittsburgh, there it is here on ours. Gary Augustine is undoubtedly a great admirer of General Negley, and we'll think he gets a bum deal when they relieve him of command after the Battle of Chickamauga. And Haig's brigade will be the first one to cross, and it will cross on the 29th and the 30th at Caperton. Sheridan's other 2 divisions, the 2 divisions headed by General Cook's other 2 divisions, Sheridan's division and Johnson's divisions will cross at Bridgeport. 2 of General Thomas's corps will cross up at Battle Creek, and 1 up at Shell Mound. But all will be crossed. Now we're going down the north side of the river, heading on to Stevenson. We've just at Stevenson, of course, as you've noticed, we've been generally going north, so we're already across into Alabama, even before we get by, we skirt Bridgeport. We're coming into Bridgeport now. You're following us on the map. Now, hopefully, you notice the situation August 29th through the 2nd. Map 11. Now, Stanley's cavalry, which is guarding the Army's right downstream, operating around Belmonte. Stanley's men, the cavalry, will also cross at Caperton's, along with Negley's division. Along with Negley's division of Sheridan's of the 14th Corps, Thomas, Johnson's division, and Davis's division of McCook's 20th Corps. Crossing up at Bridgeport will be Baird's division of the 14th Corps, following Sheridan's men across. If you don't like Sheridan, you can say he wasn't giving good supervision. If you're here in Wittenberg and don't like Sheridan, you can say he wasn't giving very good supervision of the engineers as they're building those trestle bridges, because one of them collapses not once but twice on the 30th of August. Then crossing the river up at Battle Creek and crossing on rafts. You can imagine crossing the mighty Tennessee River on rafts and canoes. That will be Brannan's division. Then crossing up at Shell Mound will be Reynolds's division of the 14th Corps, followed by Tom Wood's division, followed by Tom Woods, and followed by Palmer's division. You Illinois boys all have to like Palmer because he's going to be a future governor of your state, and is going to have and is going to be told is going to get miffed to General Sherman during the Atlanta campaign, following the Battle of Ezra Church, when he has to take orders from that pipsqueak in his mind, Grenville Dodge. Grant shows himself a man of courage and supports Grenville Dodge. Now, Grenville Dodge, later on, when we have time to kill, is going to prove that he's no fighter. He may be a good railroad engineer, but he's going to let Tom Sweeney beat him and General Fuller up when they're having a famous argument on the 26th day of September. Worse is, Sweeney had lost his right arm at the shoulder in the Mexican War. And so Sweeney can always boast, so he's going to get temporarily cashiered. He whipped the man with, Dodge could always say, a guy with one arm knocked me down, after calling me a goddamn liar and a goddamn cowardly liar. So Dodge would have been better if he'd taken a military action rather than physical action, because he swung the first punch. But that's in the Atlanta campaign. We just had a little human interest stories as we're heading now towards Stevenson. Stevenson sits back a little bit from the river. We're probably going to stop at Fort Harker. If you bought the 5 series by Robertson, there's a nice picture in the first issue. Came out in the fall of 2007. It doesn't seem that that's now into its 5th year old. It's been off the press of Jim standing at the same point. One of the photographs contemporary of the battle is taken there at Fort Harker. Now, meanwhile, one reason that now General Rosecrans is very good on tactics, because, as I say, he has drawn General Bragg's attention upstream. Bragg is covering a 60-mile front upstream from Chattanooga, up and to beyond to the approaches of Loudon, and where the Hiwassee River flows into the Tennessee from the southeast. Operating up there, Bragg has a problem. He has to separate his two cavalry commanders. Wheeler ranks General Forrest. Forrest is a brigadier general at this time. But after an ill-advised attack on Dover, Tennessee, on the 3rd day of February 1863, in which Forrest and Wharton are serving under Fighting Joe Wheeler. Despite Forrest's concerns, they will make an attack on Dover, former Fort Donelson, and the Confederates are repulsed. Forrest will not be in a good humor that evening, having two horses shot from under him, and as they sit in a cabin and do their Monday morning quarterbacking, Forrest will finally get up and confront Wheeler. Forrest is 6'2", Wheeler, and weighs 220, and they're probably as strong as any 220-pounder you'll ever run into. Wheeler's a spindly 130 pounds soaking wet, and Forrest confronts him and says, I will be dead before I recommended you not to attack there, and I will be in my grave before I ever serve under you again. So that means they've had a divorce. Right? Forrest also is not one of Bragg's favorite boys, so he is winning the Army's right. Up 60 miles northeast of Chattanooga, and all of Bragg's infantry forces are watching the crossings of the Tennessee upstream. Bragg is also noticing we've got to get General Burnside, everybody's favorite person, has been sent out west, following his relief at his request of Commander of the Army of the Potomac, and had been commanding the Department of Ohio. 2 divisions of his army had been sent to Vicksburg without Burnside, and participated in the closing phase of the Vicksburg campaign. Then, as we go into late July and the first days of August, General Burnside with the 9th Corps and the 23rd Corps are going to leave the area where we were 3 years ago. They're going to leave the area of Mill Springs and move due south into Tennessee, and will advance on Knoxville, and they will capture Knoxville on the 2nd day of September. General Bragg just cannot believe that the Confederates wouldn't defend Knoxville and Cumberland Gap. So he believes, when most of Grant's, a third of Grant's men are operating north of Chattanooga, it's logical. Rosecrans is a logical man, and he'll be moving closer to Burnside. and that is not happening. Burnside, reaching the area of Kingston, Tennessee, moves directly west and enters Knoxville on the second day of September. And on the 9th day of September, forces the Confederate forces in Cumberland Gap to surrender. So again, Bragg had been reading the wrong signals. And General Buckner, with the field force, Buckner's probably said O-S-H-I-T, because he does not like Bragg. When he is ordered to report to General Bragg, he's no longer the commander of the Department of East Tennessee. He's a part of General Bragg's army. And he doesn't like that SOB at all. Why? Because General Bragg had said unkind things about Kentuckians. Because Kentuckians had not rallied to his support when he goes north to the battle and ends up at Perryville. And he was also urinated off because he's heard the story of the attack of Breckinridge's division. Breckinridge's division, of course, on the second day of January, on the third day of Stone's River, gets his men, gets a bloody nose when they're repulsed on the attack, on their attack against the Union left. So Kentuckians don't like General Bragg, and they wish their wish is very undoubtedly, why did General Breckinridge talk his brigade commander out of taking a pistol and shooting General Bragg so they would not make the attack? So the Kentuckians just don't like General Bragg. And now he's lost his independent command and is not moving with great celerity down to join General Bragg with his two divisions, who we'll hear a lot about, Stuart's Little Giants and Preston's division. They're moving down from Knoxville because Bragg has told them to close with him, and Bragg has got another corps commander that don't like him very well. First is Bishop Polk, who, being an Episcopal bishop, besides being Lieutenant General, has an advantage over General Bragg. A bishop talks directly to the Lord. He has direct communications to the Lord, and consequently, both of them are good friends of Davis. I have to feel sorry for Davis, as two of his favorite generals detest each other, and Davis can't deal with it. So Polk, 57 years old, has little use for 42-year-old General Bragg. General Hardee has left the army, as said by on the eve of the the move against Chattanooga, to be replaced by Daniel Harvey Hill. Now, Hill has a prickly temper disposition. He cannot get along with General Lee. And General Lee gets sick and tired of his complaining. And General Lee says, well, he doesn't like serving under me. Let him go down to North Carolina. So he's been transferred to North Carolina. Now, initially, Hill was because he's getting a temporary promotion to Lieutenant General, something that he would never get under General Lee. And he remembers Bragg from the Mexican War and West Point from the old army. And he remembered Bragg favorably. But the Bragg he finds when he goes west is not the Bragg of 15 years before. And he soon joins the party that does not like General Bragg. So General Bragg initially, the Longstreet arrives as 3 of his 4 corps commanders, final one being the Reserve Corps commander, who arrives in the first days of September. William H.T. Walker, who quarrels with everybody, is kind of neutral on Bragg. So of his 3 of his 4 commanders, pending the arrival of Longstreet, do not like General Bragg. Fortunately, I guess at least General Bragg's wife, we married late in life. All right, we're getting off.